Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to another episode of the X Factor Sports Podcast, Season 4, Episode 6. I want to thank you guys for tuning in tonight. We got a great show for you guys tonight. So glad you're here. You don't want to miss what we got. So, obviously, we got NBA playoffs, we got NFL playoffs, NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs. But we got a lot going on. We definitely want to get to all of it, but we always got to start first with our layup lines and our quick news. Ladies first, as always, I want to congratulate Candace Parker on her retirement, 16 years in the WNBA. Obviously, she had a great high school career, All-American, even won an All-American dunk contest. Only woman ever do that, which is crazy. I always laugh at people from '04 because she won that, but props to her. And that evolution of women's basketball, she imprinted and put her stamp on that, even in high school, then going on to Tennessee to win national championships. Three-time WNBA champion, and the only woman in WNBA history to ever win three WNBA titles in three different teams, three different cities. Candace Parker, seven-time All-Star, seven-time first-team All-WNBA. I don't know what else more needs to be said about the greatness of Candace Parker. I'm glad she had a wonderful career, great retiring. Looks like she already started her post-career after the WNBA, going into broadcasting. She's doing a great job there. She can speak the game for both sides, men and women's basketball, and a first ballot Hall of Famer for sure. So congrats to Candace Parker. Again, on top of everything that she did in the WNBA, even going back to high school and to Tennessee, WNBA great Candace Parker retires. Congratulations, salute to her. All right. And now on to the NHL playoffs. So we can run through this fairly quick. But for those of you who don't follow the NHL, I urge you to start paying attention during playoff time. The games are crazy. Again, there's no overtime or there's no tie games. There's no ties in NHL hockey in the playoffs. So these things grind it out. If you look at the scoreboard, you go to any of your websites, you're going to see that a lot of these series are already 3-1. The Rangers swept the Caps already. The Florida series is over. The Panthers already beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, surprisingly, in 5 games. Tampa Bay Lightning has been going to Stanley Cups over the last 6 years. I think they've been to 3 of them. Carolina beat the New York Islanders in 5. The Avalanche beat the Winnipeg Jets. So it looks like these series are all kind of easy because they're ending early, but all these games are competitive. We've had an overtime game in almost every single series in the first round, and they're hard-fought, fun games to watch. So NHL is running through right now, along with the NBA. And so with those playoffs, all the things y'all have already seen Monday and Tuesday, the T-Wolves sweep the Suns. And what I got from that series, Anthony Edwards is making a statement that he is becoming an NBA superstar. A lot of people like to throw that label around very early, premature. People like to use the word great and all these things. I feel like you got to accomplish a lot to be labeled great or be labeled superstar. But this is the place to do it, is in the playoffs. Superstars are not made in the regular season. All-stars are. Superstars are made in playoffs. And Anthony Edwards is making a statement. I've been saying it on this podcast for the last year and a half that he's elite. And now he's showing the whole world because he plays in Minnesota. A lot of people don't get to see him. But now you get to see him on national television. And not just the basketball junkies like myself can cheer for him. Everybody else can see the talent. And he is a superstar in the making. They get the Nuggets in the next round. And that's going to be a series to watch. That is going to be probably one of the best 2-3 matchups we see or have seen in a long time in an NBA playoff. And I think whoever comes out of that series will get to the NBA Finals personally. So 2-3 matchup, the Nuggets and the Timberwolves. Obviously, that segues us over to Denver. Gentlemen sweeping the Lakers in 5, which is what we called. We had the Lakers winning 1. I figure LeBron and AD can get the Lakers at least 1 win after what happened last year in the conference final and what the Nuggets have been doing to them over the past couple of years. So they got 1. Jamal Murray hits 2 game winners and a series-ending shot in this series. And I'll tell you what, I don't even know if the Nuggets played their best basketball or if the Lakers match up really well with them. Because all the games are competitive. The Nuggets don't blow the Lakers out. And crazy enough, the Lakers are usually winning. The Lakers were winning in this series 75% of the time. The Lakers were winning games. So if I told you before this series started that the Lakers would have the lead for 75% of the time in the entire series, you would think, if you didn't think they won the series, you would assume it at least went 7. But it was over in 5. The Nuggets do what they do all the time. They just walked them down. And in the second half, they made the plays that the Lakers couldn't. And it's indicative of having a 39-year-old in year 21 as your best player and the person you have to lean on in the fourth quarter of games when 3 out of these 5 games is in elevation. So that's the thing nobody is talking about. Yes, LeBron is a supreme athlete. He's great. He still has over 70,000 miles on his legs or 70,000 minutes in the NBA. That is a lot of real minutes playing. And he's played in 10 finals. So you got to think the energy that he can bring on a nightly basis is going to be limited by the time he gets to April or May. He's played the most games he's played in 6 years. So we can't say injuries is why the Lakers weren't good this year. AD played the most games he's played probably ever. Everybody was healthy. So there's no really excuses about that. It's just that Denver's a better team. I don't think anybody thought that the Lakers would win this series. And that's why I picked them in 5 or the Nuggets in 5. So we got that 2-3 matchup with the T-Wolves. Also, the Thunder, the young Oklahoma City Thunder, the 1-seeded Thunder, they sweep the Pelicans. If Zion would have played, I honestly don't know if this series would have gone their way. The way the Thunder looked really, really good. They look poised. They look like a veteran team. And they're the youngest team in the league. So shout out to them. I don't think the Pels win this series even with Zion playing. They may get a game or 2. But what impressed me the most about this Thunder Pelican series is not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, is not their offense. Jalen Green is showing, Jalen Williams, J-Dub is showing everybody again that he's becoming a star in his own right in what he can do. He said he had a great offseason, a great summer, and the work is paying off. You're starting to see what he did in the offseason is paying off at the best time of the year in the playoffs. So congrats to them. Underrated Lou Dort, his defense on Brandon Ingram was underrated. Brandon Ingram had a terrible series. And it's because of the physicality of Lou Dort, getting up under him, making him uncomfortable. And with tall players, the one thing tall players will tell you they don't like, they may not admit it, is smaller players that can get up in their chest and defend them. Because it makes them uncomfortable. They can't get their moves off. They can't get separation. Yes, you can shoot over them, but you can't get balance or you can't get any type of rhythm into your jump shot if you got somebody in your chest the entire time. What are you going to do with the ball? You can triple threat them to death, but if you can't make your moves and create space, it's going to be uncomfortable. And Lou Dort not only is shorter than Ingram, but he's probably stronger. There's no probably about that. He's probably got about 15 pounds on him, even though he's 5, 6 inches shorter. So congrats to him. Lou Dort looking like a true 3-and-D guy. He was the difference in this series, I believe. So props to him on shutting down a star in his own right, Brandon Ingram, and completing the sweep of the Pelicans. So they move on. They get the winner of Dallas and the Clippers. Now that series is at 2-2. If y'all saw Paul George getting his PJ Washington on over the weekend, that was a great game, by the way. Probably some of the best offense I've seen in the fourth quarter in a very long time. James Harden showed up. Kyrie showed up. And even Luka played good, but he feels like he could have played better for Kyrie. They end up losing that game, even the series up. And I'll say this because nobody else wants to say it, but the Clippers look better without Kawhi. The 2 games Kawhi played, they lose, and the team feels like they have to acquiesce to Kawhi Leonard, basically like make sure he's involved, get him going. And they look way better without Kawhi Leonard. And Paul George is better than Kawhi Leonard. So again, the things that y'all don't want to say, you're probably thinking them, they'll be said here. But Paul George is a better basketball player than Kawhi Leonard. All right. Kawhi has won championships, yes. And what he did in Toronto, that'll be the argument. Oh, Paul George wouldn't have been able to do what Kawhi did. Okay, he had the one good year where he played well and was healthy enough, stayed upright to win a championship in Toronto with some good players. Cool. But as far as basketball, if we're talking basketball, he doesn't stay healthy enough to be compared to anybody, number one. Two, everything he does, Paul George can do. And Paul George is a more skilled player, better shooter. And I think now in their careers, Paul George is a better defender, better ball handler, so better passer. Like, I don't know what else you want. A better rebounder. Like, he does everything better than Kawhi Leonard from the eye test and probably statistically too. All right. He's more efficient. So I'm going with PG as the better player, but people don't even talk about it. So you can see how the Clippers play. They're more loose. They know where the ball is going to go. They know James Harden sets the table, and they know if they need a bucket, they can get it to PG. There's no, oh, Kawhi's on the court, we need to get him the ball. They play a little more fluid. I think Ty Lue actually likes playing without Kawhi Leonard, but it's Kawhi Leonard. So from a business standpoint, you got to have him on the floor. But the Clippers look better without him, and it shows. So they tied the series up. I feel like this series is going to go 7 games. I can see tonight the Mavericks bouncing back. They have the longest break out of all the teams in the playoffs, getting 3 days on the travel. So I think they actually will redeem themselves tonight. They can win on the road. So whoever wins this game 5, I think it's like 75, 80% of the teams that win a game 5 when the series is tied 2-2 goes on to win the series. So this is a huge game. All right. So we'll see how that goes. So that's what we got in the West. In the East, the Cavs go up 3-2 on Orlando in a crazy game. The Cavs won last night 104-103. And I feel like it was a steal at home because Orlando played really good. Paolo Banchero had 39. And for Cleveland to steal a game where Paolo has his best playoff game to date without Jared Allen is a steal to me. And for them to get that win is huge. They got to go back to Orlando for game 6. But I think that gave them some confidence. And the mismatch is, honestly, it's not even with the bigs. It's the guard play. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are just better than the guards for Orlando. Like, they can't really do anything with them. Like, Jalen Suggs, Gary Harris, like, they're not Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. So that's what you saw in that game yesterday. Like, the guard play. I think Darius Garland and Donovan had over 50 points, and the starting guards for Orlando had 13, 7, something like that. Like, they didn't really do much, and only one of them scored. So Gary Harris didn't even score in the game. So you see what I'm saying? And they lost by 1. So that's why I say Cleveland stole that game for sure. So props to them. They're one away from getting out of the first round, getting the monkey off their back from last year, being the higher seed, losing to the Knicks. So they're one win away from that. What else we got? The Celtics are up 3-1. I mean, that was the Derek White game, right? Did y'all see that game down in Miami? The Celtics took 2 from the Heat in Miami. And this series is weird because the Celtics and the Heat, they battle in the playoffs. They've been in battles in the playoffs for years now. Back to the bubble. And the road team wins more games in this particular matchup. So I can't say I'm really surprised. One, the Celtics are a better team. They're the 1 seed. They've been the best team in basketball. But I'm not surprised that the Heat won 1 in Boston, and Boston comes and takes back home court advantage and wins 2 in Miami. No Jimmy Butler, and the Heat are a hot and cold team. The only reason they won game 2 up in Boston is because they made 23 threes, which is a playoff franchise record for them, to win that game. If they're not making threes, they can't beat them. And I think Eric Spoelstra knows that. I think Tyler Hero knows that. I think Bam knows that. I think Pat Riley knows that. Hell, you can even go, I think Alonzo Mourning and Tim Hardaway know that. Like any of the Heat legends know that if they don't hit threes, if they can't make shots, they not only lose the game, they get blown out because they just can't compete. They're not as deep or as versatile as Boston. Now, Derek White, again, you got a guy that can go off for 30 plus on you, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum don't even have to really go crazy and they can win. That's scary, right? But on the flip side, Kristaps Porzingis is not healthy. Now, it won't hurt them in this series because they got Al Horford. They got some size. They can move around. They're up 3-1. They're comfortable. But down the road, not having Kristaps will be a problem if you're trying to win a title. So that's something to be nervous and look into. If y'all saw the game on Monday, he limped off the court. We don't know if it's a calf, Achilles. I don't know what it is. In today's NBA, there's a lot of Achilles and calf strains. So hopefully he's all right. And if they probably don't need him for game 5, and he can rest up, and that'll give him 5 to 6 days off if they close this series out. But the Celtics go up 3-1. The Knicks, man, the Knicks last night. So the Knicks were up 3-1. We saw what they did over the weekend in Philly. We saw that the Knicks traveled, came south to Philly and took over Philly's arena, booing Joel Embiid in Philly. And Joel Embiid talked about how he felt about it. You know, I don't think he took a shot at the Philly fans either. I think he's basically saying we need to show up and show out. Like, we need your support is what he's saying, essentially. Yes, they're the players on the court and they need to play hard and all that, but the energy they should be getting from their home fans, they didn't get. And he was disappointed. So I understand. But they flipped the script last night. So they go into Madison Square Garden, take the air out of the building, and Tyrese Maxey goes crazy. All right? I mean, number one, why the hell don't you foul Tyrese Maxey? Like, soon as he get past half court. Like, I know Embiid set a pick, but before you even set the screen, I'm fouling. Like, that should have been discussed on the bench during the timeout. Maybe it was. Everybody didn't hear it. Or Joel Embiid setting that screen. Then the man that switched dropped. And I guess he didn't think Tyrese Maxey was going to pull up from the logo, but he damn sure did and drilled it. He shot it with so much confidence. It looked like it was in as soon as it left his hand, and it was. So, yeah, so Maxey goes crazy. The Knicks are up 5 or 6 with 50-some seconds left. And Tyrese Maxey gets fouled, shooting a 3, makes a 4-point play. Then he drills a crazy 3 from the logo. Insane. They go to overtime. Obviously, everybody has seen it by now. They go to overtime, win the game. Sixers are still down 3-2, but this is a series now. The Knicks, I think, squandered an opportunity to close this out. The pressure was on Philly yesterday, and just like that, the pressure is on the Knicks to close this out. Because if this series gets to a game 7, anything can happen in a game 7. Philly feels comfortable. They know they can win in New York. All right. They know they can win at home. And the Knicks know they can win both places too. But I think the fans show up for Philly in game 6, especially now. They probably were thinking the Sixers ain't coming back home this year. This is going to be the last time we see them play here. But after what Tyrese Maxey and the Philadelphia 76ers did in New York yesterday, I think these fans got to show out for them. So I'm excited about seeing that game. I might have the TV turned up real loud and obnoxious just to hear the fans. But yeah, so that series goes back to Philly, game 6. And this is very much a series now that we're going back to Philly for sure. Pressure is on the Knicks to close this out. They need to get this done sooner than later because it just gives them more confidence. And I don't know how much more confidence Tyrese Maxey needs, but the more games he plays, the more confidence he will get for sure. So they need to figure that out. All right. And then the Pacers last night was the last game of the evening. The Pacers were up 3-1 also, and they kind of pulled a Knicks. They had a chance to close out. The only flip side is they're the lower seed, so they were on the road. They had to go back to Milwaukee. And Milwaukee got a huge win at home. And Bobby Portis and Pat Bev, I mean, they did their best Giannis and Dame impersonation last night for sure. So Bobby Portis got ejected in game 4, which a stupid ejection. Like it was a Draymond Green type of ejection, first quarter, but it's in a playoff game. You just don't do that. But he, obviously you can't get games back. The game is lost already. But he came back in game 5 and showed out. So props to Bobby Portis for shaking it off and getting his team back in this series. They looked desperate tonight, or they looked desperate last night. And the Pacers look like a young team that don't know how to close out a series. That's what it looked like. Even from the beginning, the Bucks brought the fight to them. They had all the energy and just stunned the Pacers, punched them in the mouth. Siakam didn't have a great game. And I feel like, I won't say it's a power struggle if Tyrese Halliburton or Siakam's the guy. I feel like Siakam has the experience, so the team leans on him when they're in trouble. But Halliburton is the best player. So that's a dynamic that they got to work through. It's similar to, I don't like comparing them to Shaq and Kobe. Now they were kind of building it. I would compare them to Shaq and Kobe in this regard. When the Lakers, before they started winning championships in the early 2000s, they were getting swept. So for my young viewers that don't remember Shaq and Kobe before the three-peats and all that, they were getting swept out of the playoffs. So when the Bulls were winning championships and then the Spurs, the Lakers were making the playoffs. You just didn't see them in the finals because Utah would sweep them or San Antonio would sweep them. But the problem that they were getting into as a young team is Shaq had experience. He had been to a finals. He had been in the playoffs, won games in Orlando. And Kobe just was young and was an up-and-coming star. Nobody else had experience on winning or closing out series. So when they played against veteran teams like San Antonio or they played against Stockton and Malone, they didn't know how to close out or win those series. So that's why they were getting beat early. So I only compare them in that regard is there's a power struggle with a veteran that has experienced going to the NBA Finals, winning a championship. And when his team's in trouble, do we lean on him or do we lean on the guy that has been our best player this year? And he's young, so you're going to get the inconsistency. So the Bucks look good. They look like a team that has won a championship, that has a ton of veterans on their team, and they played desperate, and they used their fans as energy, and they played harder than the Pacers, thus winning the game and blowing them out. Now, Game 6, the good part about being the lower seed and being in the lead in the series is that you get to go back home in this situation so the Pacers can close it out in Indianapolis. But they need to do it quick because I feel like if this series extends any further than Game 6 and gets to a 7th game, we can see Giannis and Dame in that Game 7. Either both or one of them come back in the Game 7. If either one of them play, they're not favored to win, the Pacers. So they're up 3-2, but the Bucks come back and respond. So shout out to them. So yeah. So with all of that being said, right? Talking about the players who are shining right now in the playoffs and doing all these great things, right? So it brings up the question about Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all these guys. And there's the thing about the changing of the guard, right? So are we seeing that happen right now in the NBA during the playoffs? Is this a changing of the guard? LeBron James, KD, Steph Curry, they're out of the playoffs. This is probably the first time, I think, since I'm just guessing off the top of my head, probably 20 years, 2005, 2006. It's probably the first time we're in a playoffs where LeBron, KD, or Steph are not in it. So think about that for a second. When we talk about faces of the league and superstars and changing of the guard, those three players have been the best players in the NBA for over a decade. And either championships or championship runs or any of those things went through these three guys. And it's similar to when Kobe and Tim Duncan rode off into the sunset. And the league was in good hands with those three. They kind of passed the baton over. LeBron overlaps them. But we can say that once LeBron established himself as a superstar in the face of the league, it was easy for Kobe and Tim Duncan to kind of ride off into the sunset. So I think we're now seeing a changing of the guard in the league. All right. You got Giannis, you got James Harden, you got Paul George, Kawhi, Embiid, players like that. Those are what I would typically call a bridge player. And that is not a slight or anything. Like Cam with the game manager, everybody thinks that's a slight on players. It's not really. So what I mean by bridge players is these are stars. They multiple all-stars. Some of them won MVPs, but they don't carry the league. They're not the faces of the league. They're great players, but the league does not lean on them as much as the league leaned on a LeBron James or a Steph Curry or Kevin Durant. So these are the bridge guys, and they're younger than those three. That's why I say the bridge, right? So if you got these three up here, and you got Shai, Luka, Anthony Edwards, Tatum, Jokic, like all these guys are under the age of 30, Jokic being the oldest out of all of them at 29, they're the next up-and-coming superstars. And I think the Giannis's, the Dames, these guys are bridging a gap between them and LeBron, Steph, and KD in terms of carrying the league. So that's what I think. And it's just like back in the day. So when you had Jordan, Barkley, Karl Malone, superstars of the 90s, right? Dream team type guys. They had the bridge of players like when they were in the 90s, they took over for Bird and Magic, right? And when Jordan retired in 98, the ratings went down. Like the NBA has never been the same. The NBA is thriving. Obviously, there's a lot of money, but in terms of viewership and people involved in watching games, the viewership has never been the same. The NFL caught up with the NBA when Jordan retired. He carried the league, is what I'm saying. You don't see that magnitude of carrying a league anymore by an individual. And so they had bridge players as well that needed to pass it on to Shaq, Kobe, T-Mac, Iverson, Tim Duncan. There had to be a bridging of the gap when Jordan retired. So you had guys that were in the league getting it going and moving that needle over to them. The Grant Hills, when he was healthy. You had big dog Glenn Robinson. You had, those types of players that were veterans, but they weren't your superstar type players until Shaq and T-Mac and Kobe and those guys could kind of take the torch. So I think that's where we are going now. As you see in the playoffs, Anthony Edwards is putting his stamp on it, literally taking the torch from his favorite player in the series. You see what Jokic is doing to LeBron, AD, and the Lakers. Jamal Murray, everybody's seen that dunk by now on LeBron. Like, these are passing of the torch, changing of the guard moments. When your idols become your rivals type moments, right? That's what these kids are doing now. So I think that's what we're seeing in real time is a changing of the guard. New superstars of the league are being born right in front of our eyes with those examples I just gave y'all. Like I said, Jokic is 29. He's about to win his third MVP before the age of 30 and possibly his second NBA title and second finals MVP. All these accolades before the age of 30. And he was a second round pick. So you see what I'm saying? Tatum has a chance to win a title. And I don't know how many conference finals this dude's been to already. He's only 26. I feel like Tatum's been in the league for 10 years. Luka, who's been a pro since he was 16, came into the league like he was supposed to be here already. He's only 25. Ant-Man's only 22 years old, just getting started. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he has a chance to win an MVP. He's 25. And he's carrying a team to a 1 seed in a brutal Western Conference and knocking out the likes of other all-stars, Brandon Ingrams. So I feel like that the other players, the Embiids and the Giannis's are great, but they won't be the faces of the league. And I feel like it's because they're foreign players, right? Nobody, again, people don't like to say it, but I will. I think the NBA, not that they're doing it intentionally, that's just kind of the formula of how it works. If the NBA is a quote-unquote American sport, right? Giannis had an opportunity to be the face of the league when he won the championship, but he hasn't gotten back to it. Embiid's trying to get to a title. He can't get that. Jokic probably has the best chance to do it because of the winning. You almost can't ignore a guy that's dominating the league and winning, right? You have to, but he's not very marketable. So you have to be marketable. You have to be, personable, like to be the face of an entire league. And so I just don't think Jokic can do it. I feel like an Anthony Edwards or Jason Tatum are the next guys up. Again, Shai is Canadian, Luka is from Europe, Jokic is from Europe. The other two guys are American, and they're both going to play for Team USA this summer. So think of how that would set up. If Anthony Edwards or Tatum win a championship this year, either one of them will probably be the finals MVP if they win. Anthony Edwards is the number 1 overall pick, 1 year at Georgia, gets to the finals in his 3rd, 4th year in the league, wins it, gets finals MVP, goes and plays for Team USA, wins a gold medal at 22 and comes back. Like, it would be set up so perfectly for him to be the face of the league, right? After he would have gone through KD, Book, and Beal, gone through Jokic, and then possibly gone through Shai or Luka to get to a final, and then gone through possibly Tatum. So these guys are going to have to run into each other anyway to grab the title of face of the league, right? So if Ant-Man does that at this age, this soon, you got to ride the waves. And Tatum's on the same trajectory. He's a couple years older, but again, the finals appearances that he would have, the Eastern Conference finals appearances, like the playoff experience alone, Tatum has a career's worth of playoff experience, and he's 26 years old. So if he wins a title and then goes again to Team USA and wins gold, right? We're basically leading them to where they need to be the face. And I think now's the time. Seize the opportunity. Now's the time more than any to seize the opportunity to be the face of the league. All right. So I think with that being said, the league is in great hands. I don't even think it's in good hands. I feel like the league is in great hands. You guys let me know what you think though. Who do you see as the next face of the league? Because out of those guys, I think those are the best guys to do it. They're young. They're superstars in the making. I would say that Jokic is already a superstar and the other guys are getting there. Some people would argue that Luka is. You've been to one conference final. I don't see it. I need more winning. Yes, you're an elite talent. Maybe my standards are too high, but I look for winning as a superstar in a league. And you have to be able to beat other superstars to earn that. Steph became a superstar when he beat LeBron in the finals multiple times. He didn't become a superstar when he won a regular season MVP. He had to go win in the playoffs. And that's how you become that. You got to knock people off the top. So I say Jokic is the closest to it. And again, all these young guys are going to have to run into each other now. And the changing of the guard has begun. And I love it. I'm excited about it. Y'all let me know what y'all think about it. So I think it's in great hands. Young players who seem like good people, more importantly. And so that makes it even easier to market them. So that's what I like about that. So we're going to keep it moving, though. We're not done with basketball. Because of what Ant Edwards did to these guys, we have no choice but to talk about them, right? The Phoenix Suns. What the hell happened to them this year? Right? I didn't have them as title favorites. I'm going to keep it real with y'all. I didn't have them as title favorites. I had them getting out of the first round. I mean, at the beginning of the year, you got KD, Book, and Beal. I assumed that they can get out of the first round. Hell, I assumed they could win a playoff game at least. They didn't do much better than my Bulls. They just played 4 more games. They didn't win any more games than we did. They got more playoff checks, I guess. But yeah, what happened to these dudes? So I had them, like I said, at least winning the game. I did not expect this at all. But let's get serious for a moment about what this team is. All right. This team was not constructed well at all. Okay. Who is the point guard? Who's the starting point guard for this team? Who's setting the table for all these scores? Right? Bradley Beal and Devin Booker are essentially the same player. They play the same way. That's hard to do. You got 2 dudes on the team that play the same way. You can argue one's better than the other, fine. I mean, when Beal's 100%, though, he is a Devin Booker type player, right? He's a good all-star caliber shooting guard. And they had 2 of them and no point guard. And they had no size. So KD has to play the 4 when he's a natural small forward. It's like AD playing the 5 when he's a natural power forward. When you're not playing at your natural position, it throws everything off. Your rhythm, the way you prepare for games, the energy you have to expend guarding the other team's position that you're not comfortable with. So AD had a great series against Denver, but I guarantee by the 4th quarter he was tired and beat up. That's why Michael Porter Jr. can bump into his shoulder, which looks like a regular play, and his damn shoulder almost popped out of his socket. It's probably because he's been fighting and wrestling with Jokic for the first 4 games. Because he's out of position. If he's guarding Aaron Gordon and Aaron Gordon's guarding him, this doesn't happen, I believe. So the same with KD. Like, he's out of position. So he's got to be a rim protector. So now, somebody that's a natural scorer, wing player, has to change his entire game, coming off an Achilles injury, calf strains, all these things. He's got to worry about his feet. He's got to worry about his ankles, people stepping on him. He's got to worry about getting elbowed up high. He's got to worry about getting landed on. All the things that a scoring wing don't have to worry about, which is what Kevin Durant is. He's the quintessential wing player. He's got to worry about all these things happening in the paint because they have no size. These are things that need to be thought of when constructing a team to protect superstars. And the Phoenix Suns didn't do it at all. So he has to play that way. Oh, on top of that, they have no damn bench. Who was coming in the games? Frank Vogel did not trust anybody on that bench. I think the only reason he put players in the game is because the Suns players was tired. If he could play it like 2K or like I used to play back in the day, NBA Live, when players didn't get tired, you could keep your starting five in the whole game. I feel like Frank Vogel would do that if he could. I didn't see a half-court offense at all. It was like your turn, my turn. And if you're familiar with playoff basketball, it is half-court basketball with the best players in the world. So that's why you see games in the 90s and, 105 to 103, those types of games in the playoffs, because now 10 of the best guys on earth playing basketball are playing in the half-court. The game is slowed down. It's more strategic. Their team was not built for the playoffs because they had no depth, no size, no point guard. And those are probably the three most important things you need to be a playoff team. Obviously, you need superstars. But if you have no point guard to set the table, a veteran leader, you have no depth, and you have no size, you're in trouble. So what happens to them? Oh, they lose to a team with depth, point guard play, and size in the Minnesota Timberwolves, and they don't even win a game. So this is not an accident that Phoenix lost. They had a bad matchup, and they got exploited. And the crazy part about what happened to them is they can't do anything about it for the next few years unless they trade one of these big threes, right? They don't have any draft picks worth a damn in the first round until 2030. We're only in 2024. If you forgot what year we were in, you heard me right. 2030. What are they going to do for the next 5 years of Kevin Durant's career? I doubt he plays that long, number one. Two, I doubt he stays in Phoenix that long. So what do they do there? They couldn't keep CP3. They need to go get him back. He can play on league minimums now, apparently. So go get him. At least you get a veteran that can set the table. You can move Devin Booker to the 3 just because he's a little bit bigger than Beal and he can defend better at this stage of his career. He's more healthy if you want KD to play the 4. Something. But they need to figure it out. They don't have any money, no cap space. Their bench is bad. They don't have draft picks. The coach is on the hot seat. If the coach is on the hot seat, the first thing I do is look for Adrian Griffin. Clearly he can coach. And the Bucks didn't seem to think he could. But he was 30-13 when they let him go. And he had 2 superstars that just started playing with each other that season. So I think Adrian Griffin comes in. He's probably learned some things of being off for a while. And obviously he has some strengths if he's had the Bucks playing that well. So I go there. If they floating around rumors about Frank Vogel, go get Adrian Griffin, man. He deserves the job anyway. And the roster's in terrible shape. So I don't know if he would even want the job. But if you're looking for coaches, he's probably the best available. But the Suns roster is terrible. No cap space, no point guard, no power forward, no bench, no first-round picks until 2030. So what do you do with this franchise? Does the owner know what he's doing? Does the owner need to step aside and hire some people that know basketball and let them do their thing and you just kind of keep the money right? That's not a bad thing to do. A lot of owners do that. A lot of owners like owning teams and then hiring basketball people to do that. So maybe that's what Ishba needs to do, is hire some basketball people and step aside because they look terrible. All right. And I feel bad for KD, Book, and Bill. And the power forward that they did have, I guess DeAndre Ayton they couldn't keep him because Nurkic got traded. But man, it looks like a lot of what ifs over there in Phoenix. Their health, Beal wasn't healthy. I don't know how many games those 3 played together, but it wasn't enough. And it was evident on the court. They looked confused. They looked overmatched. I don't think I've ever seen KD look overmatched in a series. Even when he was young in OKC and they lost to LeBron and the Heat, they didn't look overmatched like this. They were in games. KD was averaging 30 plus in the finals. So They didn't look overmatched. They looked like they knew what they were doing, like they belonged. This Phoenix Suns team didn't even look like they belonged in the playoffs. They look like the worst team in the playoffs. So when you look like that with a bunch of teams that got 24-year-olds in it, that's a problem. So that's something they need to work on for sure. Something they need to definitely look into. All right. So we're going to move on from all of that. So be sure to like, share, subscribe onto the podcast. We are always on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Rumble. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The X Factor Sports Podcast. You can always catch the audio on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, all of the audio platforms. You can check us out. We're even on Pandora. So if you can't find us, you ain't looking hard enough, but we're everywhere. All right. So check us out. Like, share, subscribe. Tell everybody the X Factor Sports Podcast is here. Also, the shirts are on sale. So I appreciate everybody coming to the live episode last week, the fan appreciation episode. I appreciate that. The shirts went on sale and debuted last week. You can always hit me up at X Factor Sports with a Z and let me know your shirt size and color, and we can get that out to you. We've already got some shipping all over the U.S. We got fans that have already received them. So y'all make sure y'all tap in and get your X Factor Sports Podcast shirt and represent. All right. Now, let's get into some NFL. We got to do that before we get out of here. We're going to play a little game. We're going to call it Start 'em or Sit 'em. All right. And with this game, we're going to talk about the quarterbacks that got drafted in the first round. There were 6 of them. All right. We're going to get into those 6 quarterbacks, and I'm going to let you guys know how I feel about what they should do with these quarterbacks at this juncture. All right. Caleb Williams was the number 1 overall pick to the Bears. So looks like some good days are coming our way if you're a Bears fan. So shout out to that. Start or sit him. Obviously, we start Caleb Williams. We let Justin Fields go. We did not trade this number 1 overall pick. We didn't do anything but stay still and pick the guy we wanted. So obviously, he needs to start. This offense is tailor-made for his skill set. And unlike last season at USC, he actually has a defense that can play football now. So he ain't got to worry about going out there and scoring 40 points for us to compete. Like, he'll be good. So he can do his thing, and we'll take care of him on the defensive side. So he should be straight. But the offense is tailor-made for him. We ain't got Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift. We got a Wnba at the 9 pick just to even put more depth on this roster. So I think he's coming into a good situation. I think out of the teams that drafted quarterbacks, honestly, I think he's coming into the best situation. And I'm not just saying it as a Bears fan. I'm saying it because it's a team that needs somebody that can lead and win right away. And we have the type of personnel to get him to where he needs to go. So that's why I say that. But you obviously start him. So we'll talk about the elephant in the room with Caleb Williams, right? We all know about the talent and everything. But the elephant in the room is the nail polish. You know, I've had people message me, ask me in person, like, how do you feel about Caleb Williams? What do you think about his style, whatever, this and that? I'm going to keep this real simple for y'all, all right? I grew up in Chicago, and I'm old enough to remember when the Bulls had a guy by the name of Dennis Rodman, all right? Dennis Rodman wore wedding dresses, painted his nails, dyed his hair, wore mascara, lipstick, still had Carmen Electra and Madonna. And, oh, by the way, he helped us win 3 championships. So I'm going to leave it at that. I don't care what these guys do, how they like to express themselves. If you know how to ball, you can ball. That's all that matters. Nobody cared that Rodman had all these antics. When it came to playing basketball, he gave you 110%, and he helped us win championships. He's in the Hall of Fame. He had 5 rings, and he's in the Hall of Fame. He probably had paint on his nails when he did his Hall of Fame speech. Whatever he wanted to do, that's fine. So that's how I feel about it. As soon as I saw the nails and everybody talked about it, I immediately went to Dennis Rodman. Yeah, he was a different dude, but he came to play every night. So as long as Caleb Williams can ball, paint your nails all you want, my guy. You might get an endorsement deal for it. You might have young fans doing it. Whatever the influence is, as long as it's positive, you're a good dude. You win games for us. I'm good to go. So all you guys that are old and stubborn now, you were Rodman fans 30 years ago. So don't act like that now. Let these young boys do their thing. All right. Jaden Daniels, the number 2 pick. I think you obviously start him as well with the Washington Commanders. You traded Sam Howell, and you got Cliff Kingsbury in there as offensive coordinator for this guy. It was probably for Caleb Williams, but we didn't budge as the Bears. We as in the Bears. So you get Jaden Daniels, who I said last week is not a consolation prize by any stretch. He's a Heisman Trophy winner in his own right. So you start him right away. What I am fearful for is him running for his life on this team. The one knock that they had on Jaden Daniels is that he gets sacked a lot because he holds the ball too long. You don't want to do that in the NFL, my guy. I don't want to put any bad juju on you, but I just don't want the RG3 vibes, right? RG3 was a Heisman Trophy winner. He got drafted by Washington, and he got hurt running for his life. So hopefully they show you film of that, of what not to do, and you can stay upright. But they definitely need to start him. They don't have a quarterback there, and that's why they drafted him. At number 3, though, Drake Maye got drafted 3rd to the New England Patriots. I say sit him. And it's not because of his talent. Don't sit Drake Maye because he's not good enough to play. The Patriots are not good. So save him. Save his ego, his confidence. Let that dude sit and watch, because this team is not prepared to nurture a rookie quarterback. There are bad teams, and then there are the New England Patriots. All right. They went back to the early 90s with this roster. Sorry, Gerard Mayo, but that team is not good. Okay. I don't know how else to put that, but they're not very good. So don't ruin this kid's confidence by getting him out on the field, not having the protection he needs, and just getting beat down mentally, physically, emotionally every week. So go ahead and put the veteran in. Let Jacoby Brissett play. Get all the bumps and bruises. Maybe you bring the kid in like week 6, week 7, something like that. Let him get some reps. Let him watch some games. Get an NBA feel. Smell the locker room a little bit. Whatever. But to start this kid week 1 would be a mistake, I feel like. So I wouldn't start him. First season without Belichick in over 20 years. And it's going to be interesting to see what the New England Patriots look like. But personally, I wouldn't start Drake Maye out the gate in week 1. Michael Penix was drafted 8th by the Atlanta Falcons. And if Kirk Cousins is healthy come training camp or week 1, I say sit Michael Penix Jr. It's a nice succession plan for Kirk Cousins if he's not healthy. But if he is, I would sit Michael Penix. And I think they will. I don't think this is breaking news. I think they did this because Kirk Cousins is 35, 36 years old, coming off an Achilles injury. And you don't know when you're going to have an opportunity to be the number 8 pick again. So you have to get the guy that you want to get. I do this in fantasy football. I don't wait or assume that the guy I want is going to be there later. If I want the guy, I'm picking him. I don't care if it's a tight end. I don't care if it's a 3rd wide receiver. I don't care if I have the number 2 pick and I pick a quarterback first. If that's the guy I want and it's my turn, I'm getting that guy. So I understand why the Falcons did it. And everybody's like, but why are they paying Kirk Cousins? Because they didn't know that they were going to have the 8th pick and Michael Penix Jr. would be available there. But because he was, I'm going to get that guy if I want him. So props to them for standing on that and getting the guy they wanted. He can learn from Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is a consummate professional. Everything I've heard about him, he's a good guy, good locker room guy, Alex Smith type of guy. You know, for those of you who know the transition between him and Pat Mahomes. I think that's great for Michael Penix Jr. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Mahomes. What I'm saying is he's coming into a situation where he himself is 24 years old. So he's mature probably in his own right. But he can learn from a veteran quarterback who's played in the league for a long time and has played well. Kirk Cousins has had a good career, right? He's been a starter ever since he got from under RG3. He's been the starter ever since. So almost a decade. So props to that. Probably over a decade at this point. So wow. So yeah, I would sit Michael Penix Jr. unless otherwise Kirk Cousins is not ready. But I think you got a mature rookie, and then the succession plan when he comes in, he's got Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. Like there's no pressure for him to perform right away when he comes in either. So I think he's in probably one of the best situations out of all of these guys that need to sit because the Falcons roster alone is better than the Patriots. So I think he's in a better situation. JJ McCarthy, the Vikings got him. I sit him. I don't think he's ready to play. Unlike Drake Maye, I think Drake Maye is talented enough to play week one. I don't think JJ McCarthy is ready to play yet. So I sit him behind Sam Darnold and let him watch. I let him learn, grab the offense. I don't think the style of play that he played at Michigan translates to the NFL. So I sit JJ McCarthy. I just don't think he's that good. I don't think he's that good of a quarterback or an NFL type quarterback yet. That's not to say he can't be, but right now, I don't think he's ready to play. So I sit him. I think he was a decent college player, but not a top 10 in the draft quarterback. Honestly, Bo Nix probably could have went ahead of him, and I think everybody would have been like, "Yep, makes sense." Bo Nix is probably better or more NFL ready than a JJ McCarthy. So it's a similar situation with like Michael Penix has. He has offensive talent waiting for him in Minnesota with Jordan Addison and obviously Jefferson. Like they're good. So I think he would be fine to sit behind Darnold and learn, and you just kind of ease him into the offense. And I think they'd be fine with that. I just don't think he's ready for NFL games yet. So sit him. And then last, Bo Nix. Again, I think Bo Nix, I'm surprised that Bo Nix went where he went, but I think the Broncos, I think they did good. I think the Broncos got a quarterback out of this draft class. And if you rank the guys out of the 6 quarterbacks that got drafted, he's not the 6th best. He could have been drafted higher than a couple of these dudes. So with that being said, I start Bo Nix. I start him with the Broncos. The Broncos go from a Wilson they didn't want to another Wilson that ain't good, in Zach Wilson. So I don't know what they do there, but that shows you exactly how they feel about Zach Wilson. We're going to bring somebody in here to compete, and he'll probably win the job. So the Broncos should probably get him on the field. They actually got lucky getting him, I think, where he landed. Because like I said, I don't think he's the 6th best quarterback in this first round draft. He could have went higher. I think he's better than JJ McCarthy. But when you know who you want, you go get him. I just made that analogy about fantasy football with Michael Penix. Maybe that's what Minnesota did. They know who they wanted. They got him. So Broncos get Bo Nix. I think he would be better. So y'all know as a Bears fan how I feel about UNC quarterbacks with Trubisky. I think Bo Nix might be better than Drake Maye also. So for Bo Nix's sake, I'm glad he didn't go to the Patriots. He can play right away in Denver, and I think he'll be able to grow. He's in a competitive division with quarterbacks, but I feel like if you are Sean Payton, you like a Bo Nix. He comes from an Oregon offense. I think you can do some things with this kid, and I think he can be successful. So I like the pick. I like what the Broncos did with him. So that's where we're at now. So that's what we got for our start and sit. Caleb Williams, you got to let him rock out. Jaden Daniels starts. Drake Maye, sit down, please. Protect yourself. Protect your peace. Michael Penix, sit him down if Cousins is healthy and just ingratiate him in nice and slow. And then JJ McCarthy, you sit him just because I don't think he's ready to play NFL football yet. And Bo Nix, I think, fell into a good situation, and you play him right away as well. So That's what we got for the stardom sit-em. All right. So before we get out of here, all right, you know what we got to do? We always get into that 2-minute warning. So this is how I feel about all the things that we talked about. So we get into that 2-minute warning. All the things that we talked about on this episode about changing of the guard, new players in the NFL, all of these things happening, right, is just new beginnings. So new beginnings is a great time to reassess and start over, right? When you have these new beginnings, it puts a new focus on things, whether it's your job, whether it's your relationships, on life in general. Enjoying the process of these new beginnings. What are your goals? Like, you can get a new set of goals. You can reset, refocus, put things in perspective, and then start fresh. Again, I talked about in one of my other episodes over New Year's, I don't do New Year's resolutions. I prefer to call them New Year's evolutions, where you constantly evolve. So it's the same thing with a new beginning or with starting new. It's a part of evolution. There are always starts and stops in life. There are always starts and stops in different aspects of people's lives. So where do you put yourself and how do you assess when you have to start over or when something new comes along? Are you excited about it? Are you, looking forward to the new experience? Are you looking forward to what there is to come with this new thing? How do you handle that? So I would say just enjoy the process of a new thing happening and look forward to the experience, look forward to the expectations of what you can make it. Because if it's a new experience for you, you can make it out to whatever it is you want it to be. So take pride in that, enjoy that, have success with it, have fun with it. All right. I want to thank y'all for tuning in tonight. The X Factor Sports Podcast. We are out of here. Next week, we got episode 7. We are going to be deep into the second rounds of the playoffs, NHL and NBA. We'll probably have some NFL talk as well. We get into baseball. We're going to talk about where teams are at this point of the season. You're not going to want to miss next week, episode 7. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and follow the X Factor Sports Podcast on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Rumble, and all the audio platforms. We'll see y'all next week. I'm Jay Mondane. Peace.